A long time ago, on a comics page far, far away. Greetings and welcome to May the Panel Be With You, the Star Wars comic book show brought to you by the Punch Up Entertainment Network. I am your humble host, Mike Gargoni, and joining me, as always, the John Carter to my Tars Tarkus, it's John Campbell.
Man, I don't know how you snuck in a John Carter comic in the show, Gargoni, but somehow we're talking about something that's not Star Wars this week, right?
Well, look, we're at a strange crossroads, both in Marvel business practice and my love of different science fiction franchises.
Yes. Hey, boy, yeah. This is, strap in, folks, for this and next week's episode.
Yeah,
good lord.
We got ourselves a two-parter of epic proportions here. That is a twisted tale of business chicanery, the ins and outs of the Marvel's business practices at this era, and just a general discussion of the roots of the subject matter we're talking about. Because yes, we are talking about Star Wars number 53, that was done by Marvel Comics Group in November of 1981. This and the next issue have the same team. We've got the legends on. This is a stacked cast. You wouldn't know it to read it.
Yeah, it's a powerhouse, no question.
We've got Chris Claremont as our writer. We've got Carmine Infantino and Walt Simonson sharing penciling duties. We'll get to that in a minute. We've got Alan Cooperberg on inks, Tom Palmer also on inks. Again, we'll get into why there's two inkers on this in a minute. And we've got Glennis Oliver Nay Ween on colors. And we've got a whole host of editors on this one. We'll get into, again, when we discuss what this issue and the subsequent issue actually is.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. And we're going to need... I'm so glad you did the research on this, because I will say, reading this yesterday... I need explanation. This needs to be, someone needs to answer for this.
Yes. Okay. So we'll get into it as the issue proceeds. But what needs to be known off the top is that previously in Marvel Comics, they produced a John Carter of Mars comic called Warlord of Mars. This ran between 1977 and 1979, and it had a lot of big names attached to it. Primarily, as writers, we have Marv Wolfman, who started off the book and ended the book, and sandwich in between, we've got Chris Claremont taking over for about a year.
Right.
So, already, we've got two big names attached to that title. We also got a string of famous and up-and-coming artists who also worked on that book. Most notably, we've got Carmine Infantino doing a lot of art for that book. But names, I'm going to just pull out the omnibus here. For those on our YouTube page, you can see I've got this huge omnibus. This one in particular was reprinted by Dark Horse years later, but this is the Marvel years of John Carter of Mars, specifically Warlord of Mars. But we've got Ernie Colon doing a lot of the inks, just an absolute titan of like putting out comics during the Silver Age. Gil Kane does a ton of the Marv Wolfman stuff.
Big name. Carmine Infantino, obviously, we get a fill-in issue from Frank Miller during the Claremont era of this book, which is weird to see. Yeah. Weird when Miller was just like a penciler at Marvel. Really weird.
Mike Vasberg filling in, and Sal Buscema, obviously a legend in the era, and Larry Hama, weirdly, on pencils. You don't see that a lot. I guess earlier in his career you do, but...
Yeah, I think he did at least one cover of Star Wars that we've covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, he did penciling, not so much anymore.
But yeah, so this is... You can hear the thump on the audio version.
Yeah.
That is Marvel's Warlord of Mars.
You like a book you kill a man with. That's going to be a strong, stunning. That's not as big as some omnibuses, but...
Right. Look, if I really want to take out a home invader, I'm going to grab my Walt Simonson's Thor omnibus. That, if you are worthy, you can lift that omnibus.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine. I have that omnibus actually. The other one that is my home defense is the Death and Return of Superman omnibus that I have. It.
Yeah. Does that collect all the spin-offs too?
Oh, it sure does, my friend.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that is. When I moved between apartments last year, that was like my moving my omnibuses was just like, what is wrong with you? What have you devoted your life? Outrageous. Putting those in like a cart and trying to wheel them from place to place was a thing.
So with the context of that, and we must know that in 1979 that book was canceled. So in terms of like the turnaround and creation pipeline, we're kind of talking about these books, Star Wars and Warlord of Mars, basically running concurrently for a little while.
Yes.
To the point.
Yes, go ahead.
Where when Warlord of Mars gets canceled, probably due to flagging sales and Marvel being in some financial troubles.
Yeah.
We have art that is basically done with that book, fill-in issues specifically, done by Carmine Infantino, that is complete, is finished.
Yes.
But since the book is canceled, that work will never be put to use.
Right.
Unless...
No. Don't say it. Don't you do it, 1980s Marvel.
Unless Jim Shooter, in his infinite wisdom, says, hey, we just got this art of this other sci-fi thing lying around. What if we slap some Star Wars on this business, and the kids will never tell? They'll never know the difference.
It's all space bullshit. Who cares?
So, these next two issues we're talking about are the cannibalized corpse of Warlord of Mars turned into 2 issues of the Star Wars comic, with a little bit of help from one Walter Simonson, because where I'm getting a lot of this information from is from a June of 2010 Facebook post on the official Walter Simonson Facebook page, in which he shows off the cover of this book. Let's bring up the cover now to show this off, because he points out, look at this frickin' Stormtrooper, how big it is.
Yeah.
The cover of this book has this enormous Stormtrooper carrying a limp Princess Leia in its arms.
Yeah.
Now,
I feel like I'm back in a Hammer movie with this diaphanous gown she's wearing, too.
You might ask yourself, where are they growing Stormtroopers this big?
Well, actually, that would be kind of an interesting story.
Right. And it's completely unaddressed except for one line of dialogue in this issue, in which I think Leia screams, enormous Stormtroopers!
Yeah.
And that's the cover for the fact that these are drawn over the 4-armed green Martians of the John Carter of Mars setting and made to look like Stormtroopers. Now, they couldn't exactly change the proportions of the character, but Walt Simonson could very easily draw Stormtrooper armor over them to try to cover them up.
Well, look at the one climbing the ladder. You can see that he's wearing pants, not armor.
Uh-huh. And he's got, like, the folded boots that are so common in these types of, like, swashbuckling adventure stories.
Exactly. And I don't know who he's carrying, a bald guy in a toga.
Yeah, and look, we'll get into it. Okay, so...
And also, that's a wonky-looking... What is that?
I mean, it's kind of a TIE bomber, but...
Right,
but it's proportioned to cover for the fact that it wasn't that to begin with.
Look at the wings on that thing where it's like, just kind of fill in.
Yeah.
Bergoni, though, I'm really more concerned about how I'm going to win this Columbia 10-speed Formula 10 racer, though. That's still good, right, Marvel? This is still valid?
Well, unfortunately, John, you can see in the bottom left corner of this particular cover, the scan bar has already been cut out, and that's what you need to send in to win the 10-speed. Yeah.
God damn it, Marvel. At least I should get a bike out of reading this comic. Boy.
Yeah, okay, so...
Can you screw me in one comic, Marvel? Jeez.
Let us continue with the train of context here, because for those listening or watching this show who are maybe only coming here for the Star Wars of it all, you, for good reason, might never know...
Star Wars show for Star Wars? What the hell's going on?
probably might not be aware of Edgar Rice Burroughs' A Princess of Mars or the series of books that spun out of that.
Right.
Now, this goes back to some pulp novel heroics that I know you're a big fan of, John.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I believe there's a whole series of the IP Squad based around this.
Yeah, that might either still be going or has just wrapped up when this comes out. But yes, where we indeed did talk about the John Carter movie.
Yeah. So it is a space swashbuckling sword and sandals kind of adventure. Think Conan in space, and you get the basic vibe of John Carter, I think. There's a little bit more romance in the John Carter books than there is in Conan.
Yeah. But it's more sword and sorcery that happens to take place on another planet than it is sci-fi.
It's definitely in a similar vein to Star Wars, what I would call space fantasy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There's a lot of stuff that has, like, you could dig into the background of how it works, but it, like, boils down to magic sometimes.
It's the, oft mentioned as in the soup of influences. I don't know that I've ever heard Lucas specifically bring up John Carter of Mars as an influence, but it's in there. Flash Gordon, John Carter, Dune, all this stuff kind of, and then mixed with Kurosawa movies and World War II movies, and just kind of mashed together. So it's in the DNA of Star Wars. That was so much of the marketing for that movie that you can go listen to us on the IP Squad talk about why that didn't work from a financial standpoint. But the idea of going, this is where Star Wars came from, and America went, we don't really care.
Yeah. And especially in some of the original McQuarrie concept art, you can see the John Carter influence when you go back to like the old Frazetta art. Frank Frazetta did a lot of really amazing covers for the Barsoom series, as it's called, the John Carter of Mars books.
It's an interesting thing we brought up, especially in the early days of this comic, which is Star Wars kind of rewrote what space fantasy looked like. They were pulling a lot of the imagery from John Carter, or more specifically Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers.
Yep.
That was what space stuff looked like, really up until Star Trek and then Star Wars. Those were both pioneering things where we got away from rocket ships and zap guns and the very specific sort of alien designs and things like that. Less swashbuckly. Although, at least in design, because there's certainly plenty of buckles to be swashed in Star Wars, but, not by actual swords.
So, with all that said, you can sort of understand where a cynical Mr. Shooter might say, it's all space stuff.
Right, yeah.
Now, as we get into this book, we'll start talking about just how divergent maybe that style
that I would
between the
argue
two franchises might be.
Anyone with an even modicum of interest in Star Wars will immediately recognize as feeling very wrong.
And anyone who was reading comics of this era, who was maybe reading Warlord of Mars, might flip a page in this book and go, hold on, wait a minute, I bought a Star Wars book.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's another thing too. Is like it's kind of one of these like, who is this for? It's to John Carter for the Star Wars people, but why would the John Carter fans know to buy this Star Wars issue?
Who is this for, John? John, this is for the bottom line.
Yeah, this is just like that'll save us a couple bucks.
This is, we need 2 months to like pad out, so let's use this Inventino art that's just kicking around.
Yeah, it's so wild to me that they thought this was, but it does speak to, this is not, well, we're still kind of in the, but we're in the beginning of the troubles at Marvel. Like the Marvel's still cooking at this point because they've got some high highs and some low lows, because we're in the middle of Claremont X-Men. We've talked about Frank Miller Daredevil's going on right here, so they've got some big prestige titles. But we're definitely starting to see the stuff that will be their undoing start to come in one Jim Shooter.
Let's see. Around this time, we also have West Coast Avengers is going on right now.
Got to be in here close, yeah. I mean, like I said, the 80s was an interesting time for Marvel. Mid to late 80s is more where you get into trouble. West Coast Avengers start? That's 84, so that's still
so we're still a little ways off.
Yeah. But yeah, Marvel in the 80s is an interesting time. And this is definitely, and also the other big thing they have, of course, at this time too, much like I'm sure based on the success of the Star Wars books, are the other tie-in stuff. They're doing Transformers and G.I. Joe, things like that. I mean, the aforementioned John Carter.
I mean, in this Facebook post from Simonson, we have this quote here that I think is pretty telling. In that he writes, let's see, Chris Claremont wrote the issue and I presume wrote the original John Carter story. I've forgotten. I don't know that it was the best way to make comics, but it was an interesting intellectual puzzle to try to solve in a readable fashion. And it was the second time I got to do something like that. I'd helped Stephen Grant convert an issue of Tarzan into a couple of Battlestar Galactica issues a little earlier.
Who would want to read those? Okay,
it was
that I can't even fathom. I mean, John Carter in Star Wars makes more sense than Tarzan into Battlestar. The aesthetics aren't anywhere close to the same.
Yeah, but if the Battlestar Galactica lands on a jungle planet, boom, zap, you're suddenly a Tarzan.
That's the thing. We could, hey man, this Burroughs content can be used for anything.
So, with that context in mind, let us press forward into this as we start out with The Last Gift from Alderaan, a title that has no relevance to this book.
Folks, stop now. You'll go insane trying to make that make sense. Hey, boy, they do try to really shoehorn in a lot of Alderaan stuff to try to give some sort of emotional grounding for this. It does not work.
So the basic premise of this story, and we get this right off the bat, is Leia being wistful about Alderaan, to the point where our opening page here is Princess Leia. This is clearly a Walt Simonson page. Her lounging in a command chair, looking sadly at a picture that says Alderaan pre-Holocaust, and it's a picture of the planet, and Alderaan sector today, and it shows just blank space, because of course it would.
I love that idea. I really need to see this for myself. Yep, there's nothing there. Okay. Jesus.
Specifically, and something I should put out is at this point, the captioneers here is a third-person omniscient narrator.
Yo, that's going to change, but also, it is dense.
That's very Claremont.
It is Claremont. This is, we always joke about Claremontian prose, because any comic book fan does, but man, these issues really, I was like, come on, man. Calm down.
No, this is like peak Claremont. He is as verbose as he's gonna get in an issue like this.
Well, because it's a weird thing. We've talked about this probably before, but the idea that this is a time when people are starting to put less words in comics. Claremont was the holdout. Was like, no, I'm going farther. I'm doing more. You know, you've got guys like Frank Miller going, I think the art can really carry it, and Claremont's like, no, I'm writing a novel that there are some pictures around.
I mean, to that point, we have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 text boxes on this single image?
And some of them are pretty hefty.
Yeah, I mean, the second to last one and the last one are probably my favorites. Since then, she has borne her loss with stoic fortitude, but every so often, her memories of that fateful, terrible day rear up once more to begin to hammer at the wall Leia has built to protect herself from her grief. Alone on the command deck of a rebel blockade runner, Leia Organa walks with ghosts.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay.
I mean, look, one of our complaints about the book since the A New Hope is Leia wrestling with the internal grief of losing Alderaan. This is maybe one of the first issues to sort of address that. I mean, the prior two Michelini issues definitely wrestled with it as well.
Yes, I mean, we've talked about that sort of a thing in general in Star Wars. People were always like, why didn't Leia dwell more on the loss of her entire planet, you know? And so the comics are trying to address that. But here it is a little shoehorned in.
Yeah.
As in this whole thing is. Anyway, lots of people lounging in this comic. We've talked about this before. There's always these lounge chairs on starships in the Star Wars book that just aren't present in the movies.
They're there a little bit in the shows. You see it more often because you're not really on the decks of like non-imperial ships a lot of the time.
That's
but
true.
like you think about like Akbar's whole setup, he's got that cool swivel chair he's in.
Yeah, but that's more of a command chair. I mean, it's ergonomic. And then that's okay. So here, I agree with you. This first page, great. Let's get a whole other page of it though. Let's keep it going, baby.
So, yeah, let's sum up the original Star Wars, because no one remembers that.
Well, let's fill some pages, man.
Well, and I looked and tracked it down. This is some Infantino, or not Infantino. This is some of the art from the original A New Hope adaptation.
Oh, so we're just even reusing it. Well, because Tarkin's green uniform on this definitely takes me back.
Yeah, exactly. No, and who did the art on that? Was that was Howard Chaykin?
Yeah. The great Howard Chaykin before he became great.
Right.
I love Howard Chaykin, but I think even he would tell you the Star Wars book was not his best work.
So, again, to save money, we're just reusing panels from the A New Hope adaptation on this page to sum up the events of, remember when Alderaan exploded?
Yeah. And also
Tarkin
remember
was being an ass.
Obi-Wan, and remember this, and remember that.
Yeah. It's, look, we're really going to go out of our way to make sure that we save every single cent when it comes to this book. If we can have art that we can just reuse, we're going to be doing it. And we're going to make Walt Simonson do as little work as possible to re-up what we've got going on here.
So anyway, we get that recapped. Who cares? On to the next page.
On to the next page, we are introduced to a whole slew of characters that are about to die. This is some classic Claremont right here. He will give us names and, like, irascible, mustachioed captains who are like, hey, I've got a character traits, and I have things that I need to live for. And let's immediately die within the page.
Oh, I once again, folks, I think this is his second or third appearance in this comic. Hal Holbrook is back, everybody. Good God. Yeah, he shows up. This is Captain Chidaki.
Yeah, we've got Chidaki. We've got a couple of other people mentioned between this page and the next page. They're all Rebel crew members helping lay out. They're on board. They're on board this ship, circling a planet called Shiva 4, because they're out here because the Empire's out here.
Yeah, I mean whatever. It's vague. What I like is, especially in this time period in Star Wars, you can just kind of be vague about, we're out on a scouting mission because Empire's doing stuff. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. But there is something about this planet that means they got to go scan it with a shuttlecraft. So Leia and Chidaki are getting into the shuttlecraft. They've got some real 1950s spacesuits they're putting on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're pretty quickly, we're moving away from the imagery of Star Wars, right? The aesthetics that we know of Star Wars. Because even still, this guy is wearing sort of a X-Wing pilot outfit in terms of color, but it's not.
Well, yeah, I think the coloring is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Again, I don't have the context for what the original issue was supposed to be about. All we know is that it was smashed and reorganized to tell this Star Wars story. So we have no way of really knowing what the original story of this issue even was supposed to be. I mean, Claremont probably could have put that together as he was writing it, so who knows if this art was used in the same sequence in which it was intended. But anytime I see somebody with shoulder straps that kind of meet in the middle, I'm immediately thinking, well, that's just a harness that John Carter would wear.
And get ready, folks, because there's a lot. But first, the explosion comes without warning.
Yeah, on the shuttle, everything explodes before they even get a chance to take off.
And Leia says, "Yee!"
She gets thrown back. Things are exploding. We cut to the interior. We have the captain yelling at his crew. We cut to the exterior of a ship that looks like nothing we've ever seen in Star Wars. It looks like the helicarrier.
It really does, yeah. This guy's name is Roke.
Yeah, we've got Roke, we've got Jubilee, we've got people running around. All of these names don't matter. These are all people we're going to be leaving in a hot second.
Yeah. Might as well be somebody who knows the Starjammers.
code.
Corsair receives news of the loss of this ship. No. It's bad. It's just pointless. It's just like, what? Okay.
Well, it's all set up to like plunge Leia down to the planet, right? Because what happens is the ship has found its way into a micro minefield. They didn't even show up on their scanners.
Mm-hmm. The bombs are once again, Claremont. The bombs are small, a grain of antimatter tucked inside a magnifield casing, so small that sensors set for normal scan won't. It doesn't matter, man. They're space mines.
Yeah, but they're so small. Don't you get it, John? They're just wee little things.
Yet they pack a fearsome punch.
Yeah, and we see fire in space. Fire in space? Totally unrealistic.
Completely impossible. It's like a untold controversy about time you're hearing it, but I'm still mad.
I think it's so funny.
Here's the thing I like about Claremont. I just looked at that, then I just quickly scrolled down to find, there's an even longer paragraph at the bottom for no reason.
Well, it's to let you know just how fucked this spaceship is.
Yeah, it is just like, it's Star Wars and a spaceship is exploding, and he feels the need to spend 4 to 5 paragraphs explaining it.
So, really what's happened, the big central premise of the explosion here is, explosion's bad, but also, if there's any Imperials around, they'll immediately be alerted to the events happening here.
By the way, this is a Claremont comic, and someone gets called Jubilee. That's a little weird for me.
Yeah, and it's spelled exactly the same, so, you know.
You think he was like, put that in the back pocket.
Yeah.
There we go.
When does the character Jubilee appear? She's already in X-Men at this point, right?
No, I don't. Is she this early?
No, you're probably right.
Jubilee, X-Men, Jubilation Lee. Jubilee's first appearance is 1989, so she's still a ways out.
She's still a ways out. So yeah, he's just Claremont loves to reuse names, so he'll just be sliding that in the back pocket.
Yeah, we'll put that in there. That'll be something there, but I better make it make sense. Jubilation Lee. That's someone's name.
And what does she do? She makes fireworks.
Yeah, whatever.
Sorry,
man.
Plasmoids. I apologize.
Yeah, just respect. And so so the Shiidaki's dead. Everybody's fucking dead.
Yeah, we find out that if we don't jettison the shuttlecraft that Leia's in, everyone's gonna die. And so she makes the decision to sacrifice herself by closing the shuttle they can't jettison it automatically because that part of the controls was destroyed. So she jettisons herself without a second thought, and we get so many thought bubbles about it.
God, does she ever? That staves the starship, I think. Antimatter micromines. They're Imperial weapons, but that's you know.
I can't brake or control. I'm gonna crash. Oh no, I'm like a meteor falling through the sky. I wonder if this is how my family felt upon Alderaan as they were descending towards their own demise.
This is the thing where it's like, okay, you're doing what we want, but now you're doing it too much. You know, it's like,
no, too much.
I want Leia to think about Alderaan. I don't want Leia to think about Alderaan 24/7 all the time. It's always, you know. Leia refuses to surrender, fighting for her life with all the strength of body and will at her command, right up until the very end when she explodes, at least based on what I get.
It's fine. She's just getting possessed by the Phoenix Force.
But thank God that we now... Yeah, I know it does really look like that. Thank God when we now turn the page, we're in a completely different comic with a different protagonist.
And a different narrator.
Who is said protagonist?
Yes. So, yeah, hard cut to John Carter of Mars.
Yeah.
Welcome
Straight
to
up.
Barsoom, the fourth planet of the soul. And here we have rather than a green Martian over here on the left, they are instead bronze Martian, Shivans.
They're called something else. There's a name, but I don't remember what it is.
He is. They are. Yeah. Look, what Claremont does in this issue is thoroughly file the serial numbers off of John Carter of Mars.
It's a search and replace.
It is literally that. There is a name for everything in that series, whether it be the like different species that live on the planet. Every city state has its own like little microstructure. There's this whole system of leaders and war chiefs that all have different names to them, to the point it's so granular to the point where Edgar Rice Burroughs invented a separate way of playing chess in which every piece is replaced with a name from the character's like ranks in the Mars series.
Star Trek just went as far as to put the board on 3 different levels. That was it, man.
I will say, look up Martian chess sometime. It's actually a very interesting way of playing the game. Like, it changes all the move patterns of the different pieces. It's, if you're a board game fan, it's a fun little like rules subset.
Sure. Yeah, here we go. I could not read this. By the way, who I thought he could have done better than calling him Ron Barter. No. But he's a total slab hard cheese guy, though, in this. Like, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, that sort of is John Carter. He's just a wholesome meathead who found himself on Mars.
In my head, I was reading him in this sort of Charlton Heston kind of like, the world is old and tired. It's history written in blood. You know, like this. Yeah.
Well, and see, here's the thing. I've been so steeped in like John Carter stuff since I was such a child, because the reason I'm a fan of this stuff is because I was alive back then. No.
He's a lot older than he looks, folks.
No, it's because really early on when I was getting introduced to like reading books as a kid, something my dad passed on to me was just this whole trunk full of pulp fiction. It was Tarzan and John Carter of Mars and like Stainless Steel Rat and like a whole bunch of stuff from like the 20s onward that was just thin little paperbacks that I could just devour at will. And none of it was maybe the right age for me to start reading it, like 6 or 7, but those were the books I had.
Yeah. I also, as you know, grew up on pulp, but we grew up on, we've talked about this before, different pulp. Tarzan, I think, is kind of the middle ground between us. That's for the Venn diagram. But yeah, I was more the Shadow and the grim Avengers of street crime and things like that, which makes a lot of sense, I think, for what we ended.
Yeah, 100%. It absolutely does.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so yes, I'm, you know, and I'm vaguely I'm familiar enough with John Carter, certainly. But just, yeah, the way, oh God, he also just, I mean, I don't think it exists yet, but the Marvel John Carter really has a He-Man vibe to him. He is basically brown-haired He-Man.
He-Man might be, it's look and design a lot to John Carter. I'll say that much.
Sure. Oh, yeah. But just, yeah, I'm always putting, but like when you open
and the Herculoids before him.
Yeah. I mean, the Conan to John Carter, like, there's a look to these guys. Tarzan. We just did, as of the recording of this, we just did Cole the Conqueror on IP Squad. And literally a lot of that was us just going, what makes him different than Conan?
Well, and here's the thing. That look was not established by the authors of those books. That look was established by the illustrators who created the covers for those books. So you talk about your Frank Frazettas who like really solidified what these like strapping space himbos look like.
Oh, totally.
And it's
people
guys of that ilk.
To this day, when you get a modern Conan or Tarzan or any of these guys in comics, they're still cribbing off of guys like Frazetta.
Totally.
But yes.
All of these are characters from the John Carter comic, but have been renamed and recolored because in the original like comic, we have our green Martians, which are big, bug-eyed looking guys. Something I found interesting and something you can actually take note of is those characters are supposed to have 4 arms, the big green Martians.
Right.
You can clearly see where those arms have been like edited out. And in this case, you see the big, thick, blocky ink lines of the leg there because they changed an arm to a leg.
Yeah. I am just looking at this, whatever this alien is that's not a Martian. Yeah, his anatomy doesn't make a ton of sense. Like where his leg is coming from, you're like, no, weird.
And so that's the game to play in this issue going forward, is like looking for the edits that Walt Simonson is doing to Infantino's art.
Yeah. Great. And once again, all so worth it too. This story really needed to be preserved.
Well, it's not preserved. It's actively being unpreserved.
That's the thing that's crazy about it. Is you just going like, so this is Aaron.
This is Aaron Peacebringer, warlord of the Callian Confederacy.
That's
blood brother to Carol Longknife, Demarch of the 12 Tribes.
And immediately you're just like, and we've left Star Wars. Okay, great, cool.
Be prepared to learn a whole new litany of gobbledygook words.
Yeah, that I can also just forget immediately. Because, I mean, just the fact these guys are running around with swords is weird. I mean, it's not impossible, but that there might be a planet where people are using swords in Star Wars. However...
Oh, there's plenty of people who use melee weapons in Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, but they don't look like rapiers.
No, they don't look like sabers that everyone has in this.
Sabers is very accurate because of the World War, or the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other, like, context that we have for this is that, like, John Carter of Mars is a book written in, like, mid-Reconstruction America, right? So you have this whole trend in media to try to, like, soften people's dislike of the South. Now, there's a whole other podcast that can be talked about whether or not Reconstruction worked or what effects it had on American culture. That's a whole other bag of snakes.
I will recommend there's some great think pieces out there about media, shockingly deep into the 20th century as well, trying to sort of go like, well, yeah, the Confederates lost, but like they weren't bad guys, you know?
Well, and that's the whole thing. Like something that I've had to reckon with my love of John Carter, it is the idea that, like, I didn't really grapple with the idea that he was a Confederate soldier until much later in my life. I just sort of accepted it as a kid.
We were talking about this on Meet the Monsters the other day. Jonah Hex is another one, too, where you're like, he's wearing a gray uniform, man. That hurt. I think that hurt the movie, too. I think that was brought up in some reviews.
But he's a Virginia gentleman who finds himself
right. That's what I mean. It's always just repurposing Confederates. It's just they're just Southern guys. That's it. That's what defines them. They're from the South. That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's keep going because Jesus Christ. Anyway,
something about the caption box I just want to point out because I don't think we did. The captions are now in first person, written from the point of view of Aaron Peacebringer, because in the Warlord of Mars comic, the captioning was all, well, for the most part, first person from John Carter's point of view, and that fits with the original books, which are all in first person.
Yeah, that's the thing. So this is him talking when he's doing that's why I was doing this world is old and tired.
Whereas I read it as, this world is old and tired, for I'm just a southern boy.
That's right. I will say, the way he's drawn him, the drawing that we're familiar with the John Carter and the Southern gentleman of the 1800s never jibed to me.
Well, to each their own, John.
That's a guy who's spent a lot of time in total fitness in the deep South there, son.
Look, I'll never skip leg day, I'll say that much.
Oh, he never skipped any day based on that.
You gotta work the traps, the lats, the glutes. All over, baby.
No gain, my friend. Anywho, there's trouble.
Yep. What's this across the ridge? There's a war party of scavengers and raiders.
Yeah. They're after a lone human woman.
Who could that be? As Aaron Peacebringer, leaps into action.
I just like the idea of it went from John Carter to Aaron Peacebringer. Way stupider.
Because he says it in the captions in the last page. We get introduced to this whole panoply of this world in which this one dude has brought peace to the nations of Shiva 4 Mars, which is the plot of John Carter.
Do you also love that it just gets a new title too? Now it's called A Stranger Among Us.
Yeah,
it really does. It's just a new comic has just started.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, no, it's an old comic from 2 years ago when it got canceled.
So the other guy we have here is Deloise.
I said Deloise, but yeah, I don't know.
I was calling him Deloise. Watch out for him is all I'll say.
Yeah, he fits into the classic like advisor who's up to no good kind of role.
Does he have a John Carter counterpart?
I'm looking it up right now. I know he does. I don't remember his name.
Because I mean, the way this is played is like it's just like my old friend Deloise. Yeah, I hope you don't betray me.
So here's the thing about Warlord of Mars specifically, the comic book. It takes place canonically between like the 3rd and 4th paragraphs of the last chapter of A Princess of Mars, in which he says like, and then I spent 9 years on Mars being awesome.
It was pretty cool.
It was pretty great. Because at the end of that first book, he like sacrifices himself to save the planet only to wake back up on Earth.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so they're like, but in between.
Yeah, but 9 years passed, and I did some crazy stuff. Go read the comics.
Yeah.
70 years later.
You're going to love those comics, man. So we've got to get through this issue. So
sorry.
Anyway, he shows up, and he's like, I don't think so. Get away from that lady. And he comes in with a flying kick. I don't know who he's kicking.
He's kicking. Well, here's the thing, John. I'm pretty sure this kick is radically extended to cover for the second set of arms this guy's supposed to have. So his leg is like an extra foot longer.
Yes. Because just like, where is his foot landing here?
Also, his thigh has like become enormous.
Yeah.
No, he's kicking the spot where the extra arms used to be.
By the way, I love that because it's this first-person narration. It is just this guy going, then I kicked everyone's ass, and it ruled.
And here's the thing. As a John Carter fan, I kind of dig all this stuff. Like, completely removed from the Star Wars of it all. This is not bad John Carter.
Well, that's the thing about this, and I think I said this to you before we started recording, that these are not the worst issues of Star Wars because these aren't Star Wars at all. So I can't. I have to remove them from the conversation. We had that one a while back that was that J.M. DeMatteis who did that insane thing?
Oh, you're gonna have to narrow that one down, John.
The one we did say was the worst, where it's all about like with all the rules on the planet and shit.
Oh, yeah. No, that was Archie. That was a good one.
That was a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
J.M. DeMatteis did the one about the Peace Planet. That's the one.
Yeah.
No, that one wasn't the thing with
the space genie.
Yeah. That was just nuts. The Archie.
No, you're talking about issue number 48, the third law.
That's still the worst to me. That's the worst issue.
Or no, that was Larry Hama who wrote that one. Never mind. Sorry.
Oh, I knew it was somebody we liked. Yeah, that's too bad. But yeah, that to me is still the bottom.
But yeah, so we get this John Carter dialogue here, or his inner monologue. I cut a crimson swath through the outcast ranks, granting my giant foes with the same mercy they would grant me.
I fucking killed everybody.
Absolutely, he did.
Yeah. And then, we're back to Princess Leia here.
I love the blue screen effect on this, because once you point it out, it's really hard not to see
when there's no background. Yeah.
There's no background, and Walt Simonson is drawing Leia on top of Infantino's art, especially in these top two panels when it's like, okay, that's clearly a Simonson Leia staring at an Infantino John Carter.
Mm-hmm. The one that really gets me is the middle panel where they've inserted Leia having to like do this insane. She's in this weird wide-legged stance and back bend to place her in front of this alien that makes no sense at all.
Unless you consider that there should be an arm there that Leia has to be painted on top of.
Yep.
The amount of like stuff that needs to be drawn onto this to get rid of the 4 arms that all these aliens are supposed to have, it truly boggled my mind.
So this guy calling himself, but have no fear, my lady. While Jane Havero lives, these devils shall not harm you.
And this introduces something that is going to be a problem throughout this issue, is Leia and all of these characters are both thinking and speaking in English, which
they can't understand each other.
They can't understand each other. So from like a storytelling aspect, it's really muddy and confusing.
It is. It doesn't do the thing you always see in comics where they'll put the little asterisks and be like translated from.
Or put it in brackets or something.
Yeah. To establish that we're having it translated to us. But it is weird that they try to make this, it goes on for a while too, right? This whole thing about like this breakdown in communication, except we feel none of that.
Yeah. Well, because again, the characters were drawn to be in sync with each other, presumably not having this communication breakdown in the original context. So,
anyway, they're
fighting these Ravagers.
This guy at the bottom is just shooting a guy in the ass. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, look. Well, sometimes you got to shoot a guy in the ass. That's just how it's.
Sometimes you got to cover up his other arms by putting in a laser.
Yep. But finally, they're driven off as Aaron Peacebringer, does another flying, leaping, kicking, which his legs do the extendo thing to cover for more arms. Look at his foot on that middle panel there. What is going on with his foot?
He flew in. He's already kicked the guy with his other leg, and then he just turned his foot to go bam, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Yeah.
And he's saying, "Fall, villains!"
That classic line.
Also, can we talk about is that knife in his hand? Because it's not. It's like he's holding it like just by the thumb. He's holding it like.
Again, the game here is looking for the edits, and like once you start looking for them, you never stop seeing them.
No, it's really weird. Yeah, there's so many bizarre poses here, and then we're back to just straight up a John Carter image though on the.
Yeah, as they push them away, and times have changed, Carol Longknife. And these cursed wretches are merely tribalist scavengers, not your proud Tessiriel, the Tharks.
Yep. Aye, beaten them this time. We four are the best of our kind there is.
Well, they're saying, like, look, there's all these scavengers here threatening the peace, and the four of us were able to beat these guys off pretty rapidly. You need a rapid beat-off if you're going to make the scavengers go away.
Ah, yes. Well, we'll get into this book. It's weirdly sexual eventually.
Not if it's a John Carter book.
Well, I know, but but it's not a John Carter book. That's the thing.
But it is, though.
But it's not, because they called it Star Wars. So I have to meet it on that level. It can make sense why it is the way it is from a production standpoint, but it's still very, very wrong to me.
We've had a whole page here, and how many Star Wars characters can I count in this page? Sounds like 0, John.
Yeah, there's a lot of, Leia really gets pushed to the side. It is sort of like, I'm Leia here to put in my contractual 6 pages to make it a Star Wars book legally.
Because on this next page, we finally do have Aaron Peacebringer, comforting Leia and giving her a costume change, so they don't have to keep redrawing her costume every panel.
I do, yeah, that is very funny. Here you are, little one. Nice. Yeah, I don't understand your language. Really? Because I'm speaking perfect English, so that's odd.
I don't understand you.
Eh? And then he says, your tongue makes no sense. Actually, this isn't John Carter stand-in. This is the other guy. Because he's in blue with blonde hair.
Yeah, I mean, look, all of these hunks kind of start blending together pretty quick.
Yeah. There's some real bad same face and same body in this.
Well, look, if there's one thing we've always accused Infantino of, it's only having one face.
Yeah, and now he's just got muscly guy. Yeah, the only way I can tell these guys apart is their hair color and the color of their armor or whatever. But he says, your tongue makes no sense, girl. Warlord, look at her skin. It's so pale. Yeah, it's a little paler than yours.
Because, we have all of our Shivan 4 natives are the human-looking ones are like pink and red skin. They definitely look like the red Martians from John Carter of Mars. And all of our green Martians have been repainted to like gold or bronze. It depends on which panel you're looking at.
Yeah, no, it totally works. Seamless is what's great about this. You can't tell. I feel like J.J. Abrams trying to argue that those Princess Leia scenes in Rise of Skywalker, man, they sync up perfectly.
It's definitely not haunting and chilling to watch a dead woman interact with people who aren't there.
Yeah, and that they're totally just writing dialogue to set up things she said years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. But finally they're able to communicate. He's Aaron. She's Leia. Leia, splendid. Now we know our names. He's gonna forever sound like Charlton Heston.
I am actually shocked Charlton Heston was never in some kind of John Carter of Mars movie or serial or something.
I mean, Planet of the Apes is kind of him being John Carter. Yeah, like Commander Taylor has a John Carter vibe.
Oh, totally. Because, I mean, John Carter's totally a fish out of water story of, like, guy from Earth gets transported to weird alien civilization.
Yeah. No, I think that, but I absolutely, he would have been on the list of people to play him.
Totally.
No question about it. Before they ended up casting Rock Hudson, probably. Anyway, they take her with them. And it just further adds to this whole thing about, like, Leia is so a prop in this story.
100%. And look, Edgar Rice Burroughs has a real problem with making his female characters props. Happens up and down the John Carter and Tarzan books.
No, come on, Jane. No.
Even literally the book called Thuvia, Maid of Mars, that it's like the main character is this woman. She is just there to be rescued by John Carter's son.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like was it Deja Torres? Isn't she
She is the titular Princess of Mars, yes.
I feel like that's been a big thing in modern John Carter stuff, has been to really bump up her character a lot.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, because it is like you almost had an interesting female lead in there.
Yeah, in the original books, she reads way more like, I mean, I think a contemporary example would be like the female lead in Shogun. Yeah. Whereas, like, a person who's, like, societal constraints placed on her make it so she only has a few outlets to, like, exude power. And in those moments, they're very powerful. But otherwise, she is sort of, like, set on the back burner by society.
Here's some interesting Star Wars dialogue. Yeah. I passed a ruined city the other day. The remains... Because the other thing that doesn't really work about this is Leia's apparently been there for days. But the comic doesn't make that feel that way at all.
No.
But she says the remains were ancient, but they indicated a nuclear bomb. Now, nuclear bombs in Star Wars. What?
Nope.
Yeah, that's nuts.
As far as we know, don't exist.
No, never brought up. That's a Battlestar thing.
Yeah. And look, this is just Claremont doing his best, man.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting this idea that this is an ancient civilization that has sort of devolved into this like tribal barbarian society. Yeah. And I know that is an extremely reductive, like very white Western thing of me to say in terms of just like, I don't know, warring states kind of society of like clan-based, post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's it's got a little bit of the It's well, actually, it was Oliver Stone's original script for the Conan the Barbarian movie. That was his idea. It was it's not the far past, it's the far future.
I mean,
that was his
the Hyborian age is like in the far future, not the past. That's actually an interesting twist.
Yeah, deemed too expensive by the studio.
That's fair.
Yeah, no shock there. Anyway, so they fly off into a goddamn electric company animation.
Yeah, this next page where it's just like rainbows and sunbeams as they're flying across the Technicolor dream sky.
Maybe the 80s, but this is very 70s. And then it's just more things about like, and so we traveled, and people talked about our traveling.
Yeah, and we get some establishment of Leia's kind of picking up the dialogue a little bit, and they're flying, and they're heading to go check out this city, their city called Illyricum, which is just helium. I kept replacing that whole word with helium in my head because that's the name of the big city in John Carter.
Yeah. Why are you here, little one? But every time they call her little one, I'm just like, shut up.
Because he's gigantic. He's a
giant, I understand, but it's so condescending. And then her thing is like, they don't trust me. Oh, no.
Yeah, well, obviously. They come from a planet that has nonstop conflict and war.
We reach Cavor.
Yeah, Cavor is the city they've gone to explore. They're exploring Cavor.
Found ourselves gazing into the great pit of hell.
Yeah, this place is not looking great.
Yeah.
Beside me, Leia gasped. I like how he's narrating this whole thing.
Well, it's so weird that we get his first-person narration and her thought bubbles.
Yeah, look, if Claremont had it his way, he'd have captions for every goddamn person on this page.
Oh, unquestionably, yeah. I mean, this book would be 4 times longer if they had not stopped it. She looked like someone who just met the shade of her first ancestor.
Yeah, because on this next page, we get a lot of thought bubbles from Leia basically recognizing what's happened here.
But she's once again talking about, like, why, look, it's the blue flame, the Cherenkov effect. A fusion bomb would produce the radiation. Oh, shut up about hard radiate. What are you doing?
Yeah, in Star Wars, we're worried about a radiation leak.
A fusion bomb would produce that, but oh my god. But it's an antimatter bomb.
Yeah, suddenly Leia becomes Spock as she runs down the logic of what would be causing this.
Captain, a massive radiation. That would make sense in Star. They do talk about radiation in Star Trek.
Totally.
But he's just like, radio what?
Well, specifically, Leia can't communicate any of this because these are a bunch of dum-dums. So she's just having to pantomime like, no, don't go in there. We will all get cancer and die.
Trying to imagine any of this. Did you imagine Carrie Fisher being like, no, stop.
Imagine Carrie Fisher's like editorial pen coming to the pages of a Claremont book. It would just... Unstoppable force meets immovable object. They would cancel each other out.
They're being taken out there, yeah.
We would be left with nothing.
What is the female doing, my lord? I'm not sure, Habero. But I think she doesn't want us to enter Cavor. I think she says we'll die. She does the...
Yeah, Leia's pointing into the engulfed in flame city and then putting the slash across her neck of just like, don't do it, we'll die.
Seems to be indicating it's dangerous. Once again, yes, a city that's literally on fire. And he's like, danger inside, you say?
But then Mustache Guy's like, hey, I think this lady's trying to trick us. And Aaron Peacebringer, is saying... I trust this weird mute lady that we can't communicate with.
Mustachio Bad Guy, by the way, reminds me of a different villain from a different Mars story, which is that evil Martian from Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Oh.
He's got the big stash.
What was that guy's name?
I'm trying to remember what that guy's name. All I can remember in my head is the character's name, Droppo. Which is the...
Yeah.
Oh, Droppo.
Oh, Droppo.
Oh, man. What a movie, by the way.
Well, the only reason we know that is because of MST3K.
Oh, and I not a Christmas goes by I don't watch that. What a film. I'm looking up that guy's name.
Yeah, same.
Is that Voldar?
I think it's Voldar.
Yeah. Played by the legendary Vincent Beck.
I knew it was 2 syllables.
A guy who definitely played a lot of villains on 80s detective shows I watched.
Yeah, because he's the only one without... Because there's Grimar, Momar, and Hargo, which are like the little Martian kids. Anyway, that's a total... So we get some interior monologue of evil mustache guy.
Yeah. Magnificent. This demonstration is all I was promised and more. Enjoy your crown while you can, Warlord Aaron, for you shan't be wearing it much longer. Soon, very soon now, Crown Wife Confederacy Planet will be mine. Shan't.
I always love a bad guy who thinks, well, if I kill this guy and take all of his stuff, his wife will have to love me.
She's just going to respect it. She's going to be like, you know, I saw nothing for you, but that display of power and masculinity, I'm powerless to resist it.
And look, I understand that there is a historical context for kings slaughtering other kings and taking their wives, but to have a guy's internal monologue say, like, I think I'll take his wife is just like another step.
And his wife, too. Yeah, throw her in the cart.
Speaking of wives, let's meet Dejah Thoris. I mean, this other name.
This is the most, like, Dejah Thoris. That, of course, that's what that is.
Yeah, because we cut to just straight up Infantino art, no edits necessary, of John Carter studying at his desk.
I've got to read all this. I got to prepare for tomorrow.
Look, he's got a cup of tea and some cucumber sandwiches, and he's ready to read some notes.
That's what I think. I think of John Carter. He's you know, he really stays up on his reading. That's the big thing. Look at all this correspondence, Dejah. I mean, what's your name?
Her name is
like Elise.
Yeah, it's
Sunday, but he calls her
Alessandra. Yeah.
Yeah, but he calls her
Alice.
Yeah.
And that the spelling of it changes a couple of times through the book, which doesn't help.
But look at that though. Look at he's got number one pointed eyes, but she's doing it like, I'm gonna sneak up on him.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a scamp. He's like, $50 for cable. I just it looked like he's like, I'm doing my bills. Oh fuck, it's tax season again here on Shiva 4.
Do we really need Netflix and Disney Plus? I only really watch the one.
Dejah, how much do you watch Disney?
I know, we're waiting for all of those documentaries on the Discovery Channel to drop, but, like, do we really need those?
I'm just saying, maybe we do sort of a thing. Hulu 1 month, then Disney and Paramount what? Yeah.
Oh, shit, there's a bundle you can do with Disney and Hulu? Ah, hell.
No, but will I ever really use ESPN? I just don't know. What could he be looking at? It's just
this is some like real John Carter stuff where we have this romantic scene where they're like play fighting with each other, and John Carter and Dejah Thoris are like slapping each other around a little bit and then getting some kissy on.
Oh, it's a lot of playful, but also it's playful but pretty intense slapping. Look at the impact.
I mean, look, Mars is a warlike people. They have to know that their paramours are strong and can take a good bitch slap.
Yeah, and then you've got to love that there's also an alligator in here.
Yeah, so Woola is a constant companion of John Carter, and that's his like big six-legged like hound beast thing.
That's just here.
And he's just here.
They didn't do anything to try to eliminate that.
Nah. He's real derpy and cute in the movie.
Group. Yeah. And so they're making out, kind of. Their lips aren't actually touching, I'm now realizing in that art.
Well, look, Comics Code Authority being what it is.
Yeah, we're also talking about the waning days of that, but it's still around.
But we also have the interior monologue of this guy saying, while I was kissing my beautiful, hot alien wife, I couldn't stop thinking about Leia.
I love the very, like, man, we're into, like, a Cassavetes movie now, where it's just like, I've had feelings for another after being married to this woman for so long. I can't get her out of my mind.
Meanwhile, the action on the page and the dialogue is completely at odds with his inner monologue as Dejah Thoris, I'm not going to call her anything else.
I can't even keep my head. Her name is Alessandra.
Says, letting me up for air, Aaron? How kind. And Aaron responds, it's only for a moment. I thought we might continue this weighty discussion in our chambers.
Leia, I mean Dejah, I mean Alessandra. And then, yeah, boy, oh boy, man.
Cut to post-coitus.
Yeah. Dejah Thoris has put on her Wonder Woman boots.
Mm-hmm. And Aaron has put on his nothing. He's got a towel in front of his junk.
Yeah. Comics Code said I have to hold this towel tonight. But yeah, it's there's nothing happening here.
No, it's two characters that aren't Star Wars characters talking about not Star Wars stuff. They're talking about the plot of a John Carter novel.
And then, hush, Chiba.
Yeah, Chiba, who is the Woola stand-in here.
Who's going, wine.
I want to look in the old Infantino issues. Do they have a drawing of Woola anywhere? I want to try to find this.
See if they changed anything.
See if they changed it at all, because
I don't think so.
Because yeah, that's all. Oh no, it's like really the same. I'm just gonna show you some. This is Dave Cockrum, but like it's obvious that Infantino. I'm just gonna hold this up to the camera here so John can see, and so our viewers on YouTube, and it's like really like one for one.
Yeah, I mean it's just a big alligator.
Yeah, no, looks exactly the same.
But then, so you get this whole thing about like, there's stuff going on this planet, and then it's like, but also in my head, all I can think about is Leia.
Because remember, this is a Star Wars comic.
Mm-hmm. It is like, oh, stop, well, hang on, we have to put our own story aside. What about Leia?
If Leia's not on the screen, everyone should be asking, where's Leia?
That's kind of what they do here. And then also, I like she told me about some kind of galactic empire. It sounds really bad. And then you believe her as he puts on the most 70s Marvel giant collared.
Oh, it's something Adam Warlock would wear.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think this is good? Or is this too much of a Warlock look?
I saw the High Evolutionary wearing this, and it looked great.
Doctor Strange needs his cape back. But I mean, but I also just like this idea about, like, she told me about the Galactic Empire. Probably nonsense, though, right? Also, yeah.
Then it turns out there's going to be a party, and like all of these people are showing up, and Leia's going to be a guest of honor. She's got her Dickensian dress on for some reason,
and all of a sudden he's like, "Ooh, baby, now she's in my culture's clothing. Hello."
Yeah, and we get a romance comic aside from the queen here, as she's just like, "Strange, I've never seen Aaron so ill at ease. Leia senses it too."
Husband Leia, shall we greet our guest? And then he's not in the same outfit, folks.
No, he changes outfits from panel to panel.
They made a point of having him put that shirt on, only to then not wear that shirt, but still keep the collar of now the cape.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Seamless.
And then there's a big party, and a bunch of people are invited, and Leia gets introduced to Beardface and Bald Guy, and what's this, Mustache Bad Guy's here too.
I'm here too, wearing my crown.
And Mustache Bad Guy is being all suave and giving Leia a good dancing.
Mm-hmm. Too good of a dancing. I see it.
And we get this aside from John Carter and Deja Thoris as she's like, "Husband, you gaze at Leia as you once looked at me."
But weirdly, she's weirdly like, "Look, it's no crime to be tempted, okay? It's all right. That's fine."
Like, you can appreciate a beautiful woman. Yeah. That's cool. It's what you do after that makes the measure of you.
Yeah. A weirdly mature, like, attitude in this Star Wars comic.
Yeah, sure. It's like, look, looking's fine. It's just, you're also my husband and the warlord, and, like, make your decisions properly.
And then she says, "I care for Leia, too, as a daughter." What? How old is anyone supposed to be here?
Well, the average Martian life expectancy is 1,000 years, Sean. Eventually, they do take the voluntary pilgrimage down the River Is, and none have ever returned from that, but that's addressed in The Gods of Mars, the second of the Martian novels.
None of that has anything to do with it. No, I don't know. It's just weird. It's a weird line. As a daughter, as a friend.
Yeah. Well, as a character who's being drawn weirdly into this book.
And then you want to talk about sexual predator energy. Look at
Deloise, yeah.
Yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
He wants none of what's happening here.
Well, and we even get that on the next page. It's like the party continues, everyone's dancing, and John Carter is constantly stealing glances over at Leia, being a little jealous, and he sees that she keeps trying to ditch on Mustache Bad Guy, Delois, or whatever. Yep. Mustache Bad Guy works. That's a good enough name. It doesn't matter.
And then runs off, like, crying.
Yeah, and we find out why when we get to this next page, as she and John Carter have this, like, tete-a-tete where she's just, like, feeling guilty for having a good time.
Yeah, it so begins what will continue in the next issue in particular to be a Leia that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, so we have this Leia here who she basically admits to him that, like, she was having a good time here tonight, and for a moment she let herself forget about the wider Star Wars that's happening.
Almost like I did reading this.
So if anything, Leia is really representing the viewer and the reader here as just like, oh, wait, I was having such a good time, I almost forgot about Star Wars.
Forgot I was in a different comic. Good God. Yeah.
I wasn't Leia Organa, princess, senator, rebel leader, warrior. I was a woman, no more, no less, enjoying myself at a fabulous party. I forgot too much.
I hate this. I hate this so much.
I mean, there's a kernel of something interesting here. Just like, what if Leia, like, put aside all of the political ramifications of her own existence?
If this in any way felt like a Star Wars story, maybe you could build something out of this, but man.
And then we get this other backstory about Aaron Peacebringer's firstborn daughter also died.
Oh, for God's sakes, yeah, like we needed any of that.
But then it's going to set up this, like, weird para-father-daughter relationship that they're going to try to force onto art that is clearly not intended to be that.
In my time, I had buried friends, enemies, a child. But never as Leia of Alderaan did on that balcony. An entire world. Remember Alderaan, folks? Like, it's just, they just keep coming back to, like, we called it a gift from Alderaan. We need to make sure we mention Alderaan a lot. Doesn't make any sense, you guys. God, this is bad. It's just clumsy.
Yeah, I think clumsy is the...
Because that's, like I said, I still stand by, this is not the worst. It's just so clumsily put together. And like you're saying, reading this, I was just baffled. Now that I know what the context is, I'm angry in a different way, where I'm just going like, God, the thought you could get away with this.
Oh, they did, John.
I mean, it came out, yeah. But then what's this?
Huge, enormous stormtroopers.
Just dropping in. You know, like stormtroopers do, the way they just fall from ships at people.
Okay, and we reused some art from the cover. Clearly the cover was like another panel from this sequence that they then scrapped and used as the cover.
The way this stormtrooper is carrying Leia up this ladder, and he's holding on to her like behind her knees, is so weird.
Well, because she's drawn onto cover for the fact that he needs an extra arm.
Yeah, it's very... I also like the very not stormtrooper holstered pistols.
Yeah, yep. Or the pleated boots of these stormtroopers again.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is very weird.
And how they don't have necks.
Guess what? The Martians of John Carter don't really glom into stormtroopers very well.
Now, imagine a white-clad, four-armed monster that would be introduced in this if it was just drawing stormtrooper armor on top of the Martians. That might be cool.
You never see other species as stormtroopers. It's always just...
No, because, like, famously, the Empire is extremely xenophobic.
Oh, what? That's always... You know what? I never thought of this. They're kind of Nazi-esque.
Whoa.
I never really... Oh, wow. Wow, yeah.
All right, so one of the other meat slabs comes out and is like, I think I heard something, because both Aaron Peacebreaker and Leia have been kidnapped now.
Steak ripped body walks into frame and says, "What's going on here?"
Thick meat slab.
Yeah. Also, check out that MST3K, Space Mutiny, one of my favorites as well.
Oh yeah,
one of the funniest ever. Yeah, Lance Hardcheese. Odd. I just like that he's like, odd. I saw Princess Leia run out here, followed by the Warlord. I don't. This is weird. I don't.
Like panels of him being like, weird.
And he's just like, this seems strange. I don't like it. All right.
Cut to.
That's
the last page here. Let's get into our villain here. Well, I'll get into more about Scar next issue.
Who's aggressively not a Star Wars character.
Oh no. But I want to get into this next issue, and we'll get into it. Yeah. But this guy has been retconned into being such a Star Wars character.
Well, because we were literally just talking about the xenophobic nature of the Empire, and then here we have the giant, weird purple alien being like, "For the Emperor."
Yeah, with a weird skull face. Because Leia and John Carter have been captured by the Empire. Remember the Empire? Remember Star Wars?
Oh, yeah. Wait, you got your Star Wars in my John Carter.
Well, you got your John Carter in my Star Wars.
There you go. And so he goes, I'm Scar. I have the honor to be the general in the Imperial Strike Force. Really? Nothing indicates that you hold rank in the Imperial Army of any sort that I can see.
And then we get this huge thought bubble of this guy being like, oh no, Leia was right.
Oh shit, there is a galactic empire. That's bad.
And next issue, Starfire Rising.
I don't know what that means.
But not that Starfire.
No, that's she's in a whole other thing at a different company. A book I'd rather be reading.
There will be no large orange ladies in the next issue, unfortunately.
I just imagine reading that and going like, oh yeah, I should read New Teen Titans instead.
I think Dick and Corey are getting married in this issue.
Oh, weren't they always?
Well, and then Raven's dad had to show up and make a big deal about it.
Oh, fucking Trigon, man.
So yeah, that is issue number 53 of.
We have another whole issue of this.
We have a whole other issue of this, but I have so much. Look, in the next issue, we're going to start talking about Scar, and there's a lot of interesting things that happen there. I've got some background on this guy and some connections that you might not expect.
Next issue, I'll be skimming through the text boxes. Yeah. Anyway, though, if you want more from us and everything on the Punch Up Entertainment Network, and why wouldn't you after this? You can head over to our Patreon page, patreon.podbean.com/punchup. Like I said, you get cool exclusive bonus content, including early episodes of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, whole seasons ahead, in fact.
Whoa.
And all the stuff as well. Support the shows on the network. Once again, that's patreon.podbean.com/punchup.
And another way to support us, maybe even a better way, I don't know, who's to say? Depends on monetization rules and guidelines. But
we're still running
another way to support us is over on our YouTube page, youtube.com/@punchupentertainment. There you can find all of our stuff as, again, including YouTube exclusive content, like watching this show and reading along with us as we show off comic books that Mike Rigoni is holding up to a camera awkwardly.
I think that's the first time we've had physical comics make an appearance on it.
Oh, it can't be.
Probably not, but yeah.
But there you can also watch our YouTube exclusive series, like Punch Up Plays, where right now Elliot Lewis and I are playing through the Mass Effect franchise. We have an interview series where John interviews cool creative people from every creative background that you can think of. I'm not sure how many of those are up as of this point.
Probably just the one. I'm doing that, every couple months or so. So there's not on a regular schedule.
And we also have Punch Up Goes to the Movies, where a rotating cast of our panelists talk about movie reviews as they come up.
Indeed. Lots of stuff. Lots of reasons to subscribe.
Yeah. While you're there, please like, comment, subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications every time a new thing from the Punch Up Entertainment Network is released. Let us know in the comments below, which weird pulp character would you want to see forced almost against their will into Star Wars? Because I'm thinking the Phantom.
Defender of the Jungles? Why not? He fights piracy. There are pirates in Star Wars, I guess.
Sure. Have him fight Crimson Jacket and go swell.
Oh, I'd love to see it. With his blazing 45s.
But I think that's going to do it for us this week. As always, I have been Mike Ergoni.
I'm John Campbell.
And remember, may the panel be with you.